Good evening, good evening, good evening. Buy Black for Life. Welcome, 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 welcome. I was about to say welcome back, but it's me who was
Yeah,
away.
you're the only one that's been away, Jerome. Yeah.
Um, thank you. Welcome one, welcome all. Buy Black for Life. Welcome. We are here with our real estate roundtable. Come on in. Welcome. I tonight's topic is one that I'm really excited about. You know our panelists, but I'm just going to ask them to introduce themselves really quickly, who they are, what it is that they do, and I'm going to start with you, the Dr. Jackie. Please introduce yourself to everyone as to who you are.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you again for having me back. I feel like I'm always home when I'm here. I just want to really say thank you for having me back. So basically, what I do, I'm the founder of Wealth Enrichment Fiscal Literacy Initiative. And what I do is I teach people how to become intimate with their finances so they can live an abundant life. And what that means is I teach you how to budget. I teach you how to budget. I teach you how to look at your numbers. What is more than a budget is financial wellness, where we get to discuss emotions and beliefs that are tied up with your numbers, right? So you will look at me as a financial person, and I look at your numbers as a story that they tell me. So I'm here to support you with getting intimate with your finances, not just now, but also to project and to have different types of budgets that will support you with, say, like the topic tonight, purchasing a home.
Awesome. Thank you. Melba, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Amelba Martinez. I'm a licensed real estate associate broker, actually at Peace of Mind Realty, located here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm also passionate about just educating people about the first-time home buying process, the home buying process all the time, as well as sellers who are looking maybe to transition to either a smaller property or just looking to transition to another state. Definitely helpful for that. And another passion of mine, which is all in the wheelhouse of real estate, is landlord education. That's definitely, this is my wheelhouse, my sweet spot. I love talking about small property owners, especially the ones looking to, who don't necessarily think that this is a business, but they kind of look at it as a pastime because they're, I don't know, first I might have told them, hey, if you get yourself a rental, it'll pay towards your mortgage, right? But they don't necessarily think about this as a business. So I'm looking forward to this conversation this evening. And thank you again for having me.
I'm sorry, Karen, please.
Hi, I'm Karen Everett. I am a fraud a fraud internal auditor by day. Been in the financial industry my entire career. Purchased several homes, and one home I purchased specifically as a real estate investment. And I'm one of those people that Imelba's talking about, that you want to be a landlord and you don't really understand what it entails until you get in it. So I've got some stories to tell and a little bit of experience with that. And I am very happy to be here and be back. And thank you for the opportunity. I feel like Dr. Jackie, I feel like home now.
Thank you. Thank you. And family, Jerome Hurt, founder of Buy Black for Life. I've been a homeowner. I went through been a homeowner multiple times. Still, yes. I went through real estate class when I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina, because my thought was I wanted to be a landlord myself, or I thought I did. But also, I just wanted to know when I started buying more real estate property, what went into it. So I'm happy about this topic. And, you know, we are just going to jump right in. And Melba, I'm going to come to you first because you see it from being the real estate professional as well as it's something you yourself did. Let's start off with what inspired you to be a real estate a landlord.
It kind of just happened, right? So as a kid, my mom, she was determined to purchase a home on her own, and she was determined to make sure it was a multifamily. So she purchased a multifamily, and I just call myself the landlord kid, right? So watching her, she's a single mother, really making it happen, but also sometimes not making it happen. It was very scary and profitable experience, I should say. And in my early 20s, I shared with her, I want to own a property. So she challenged me and said, okay, own a property, no problem. I have a property here that I'm having some trouble with. And it was kind of like a challenge to me. I was still living in my house with her in my bedroom and still living at home, but she challenged me. And once I did it, once I was able to like say, okay, I can rent this apartment. I unfortunately had to evict the tenants at the time, and fortunately at the same time, because we could talk more about that later. They were a little bit interesting. Once I was able to accomplish that goal, I was like, you know what, I can do this again. So I did it again. And I just want to share my foreclosure counseling experience, my foreclosure prevention counseling experience. I also met people, Black and brown people, who were small property owners who pretty much didn't understand how to manage their property. And so I felt that it was also important to kind of get on the education side of it as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Jackie, how about you? What inspired you to become a landlord?
Well, no, I was not. I'm gonna be real honest. Was not inspired. Didn't care for it. Didn't want it. I was good. Purchased a 2-family home. Was gonna build a spiral staircase to go to the rental unit. And my dad said, "Then why did you buy a home?" I was like, "What do you mean? Why I bought a home? Because I wanted a home." He goes, "Let the tenants pay for your mortgage." Right? And I couldn't understand the concept. And I was so adamant about it. I was like, fine, if you want me to have a tenant, you'll find a tenant for me. The tenant moved in before I moved in myself. We did the closing, moved in. I was still going to my dad's house until he told me, "You're costing me money, get out." In those words, there was no love attached to me. You're costing me money, get out. And so that was my first experience, but it became addictive. And then I went and I bought my investment property in Florida. I purchased it during the last financial crisis that we had. And I have to tell you, it was very emotional for me because it was a time where people were losing their homes.
Right.
They were losing their homes. They had to get up and leave. And I would literally see these homes with, I could see that there was a child living in a room because of the toys they left behind, or because of the crayon drawings in the walls, right? And so because I'm a sentimental chick like that, it was bad, right? And then when we purchased the home, there were, and this is where Melba comes in, right? Because girl, it's a business, snap out of it. When I purchased my home, right? When I purchased,
show that T-shirt, Melba, please.
I had a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, right? I didn't know that. I learned that after I got my real estate license, right? And the lady that was my representative, she was like, "You're not living in the house." Because I was like, "Yeah, but I don't." She says, "This is an investment property." I was like, "But you're not going to live in the house." So she was like that person in the back that kept reminding me, listen, right? So when we purchased the house, there were 3 palm trees in the front of the house. They were baby palm trees. And I was like, this is in Florida. I told my husband, we're going to keep the palm trees because I don't know whose dream that was.
Right. Wow.
And he said, okay. And I paid, listen, emotions.
Yeah.
I paid a gardener every month to go take care of the palm trees. Palm trees are still in front of my house. I don't pay a gardener anymore. I learned real quick, fast, in a hurry, and listen to me. Got it? Good. Hold that memory in your heart, but you don't have to bleed the money for it, right? So I was, I have to say that it became addictive, and it is addictive. It's like Monopoly. It's like, okay, I purchased this house. Because for me, number one investment is property.
Yeah.
A long-term investment. It's something that I know I'm going to hold on to it. And it's something that, if I treat my tenants right, they're going to stay with me forever.
I love that. Love it.
Mhm.
Karen, what prompted you
So
to be a landlord?
my first jump into being a landlord was quite by accident. I had a job in New York that I loved, and I was being transferred to North Carolina. And it was my first home that I had built from the ground up. So very emotional, very attached to it. Because I grew up in apartment buildings, right? So this was the first time that I lived in a house on my own, that I picked out the land and, customized everything in it. And then I got transferred. So it was my mindset that I'm not going to stay in North Carolina. I'm coming back and I'm going to live in my house. And so I kept it, didn't know what I was doing. And to the point where just before I was leaving, I still hadn't decided what I was going to do with this house. And I remember sitting on the stairs in the house and saying, okay, God, if I'm supposed to take this job and move to North Carolina, then you're going to figure out what's going to happen with this house. Next thing I know, I get a tenant. I called the realtor and they came up, and it happened to have been someone at the church. And again, I'm emotionally attached to the house, and then the tenant had me emotionally attached to them. I'll share a little bit more about that later on. So it wasn't a good experience. It wasn't a good experience at all. And then eventually I sold the house because it was too much of an expense to keep that, because again, remember, it was my first house. So I didn't skimp. The mortgage was hefty. And then I moved to North Carolina into an apartment where the rent was hefty. So it was pretty difficult to keep them both afloat, especially when the tenant wasn't paying.
Got you.
And so it was not a good experience, and got rid of it. And then my brother convinced me to buy an investment property and put a tenant in it. And of course, my brother can get me to do anything. And that's what we did. So here we are, landlords together. And I got a story to tell.
Okay. I'm ready for that story. And I just want to say, we worked for the same company that moved so many families down to North Carolina, and so many different stories. But looking back, I should have held on to my New York property, because now it's worth $1.2 million on Long Island, and
wow,
I should have held on to that. But that's a different story.
I held on to mine too.
Yes. So let's talk about the emotions that come with being a landlord of Melba. What is that like, and what's the good and the bad? Now you're a landlord. Hey, what's the good and the bad now?
Emotions. They definitely could get the best of you. So you want to be like the best person. You want to make sure you're doing the best service for these people, for your clients. I call them clients because we're providing a service, a roof over someone's head. And I remember my first tenants, God bless them. They called me. They're like, "Oh my God, the lights are out." So I'm young, having a good time after parties. I got in a taxi cab all the way from Manhattan to Queens to see what was going on. When I got there, everything was fine. I was like, what happened? So I say that to say, because I was just like, oh my God, they're in the dark. What am I going to do? They're going to call somebody on me. Even when it's like, someone calls and like, oh my God, the temperature is cold in here. I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna call HPD. They're gonna, all of these emotions come into play, because you're like, you want to be the best, person in this situation. At least I do. I don't know how many. There's some landlords out there who don't really, care.
Slumlord.
Right. I just want to make sure that the person is fine. And so it does become emotional. I've had many people, especially as a younger person, who will confront me because they're older than me. They're like, who are you? Why am I renting from you? This is your house? How old are you? Like, I had to constantly be questioned. Where's your parent?
Wow.
I was always have somebody coming at me. And unfortunately, I don't like to say it, but it's always, it was people that look like me, right? They were just like, what? You have a house? You know, like are you still in college? Like it was just kind of like these questions. And of course for me, those questions were like, next, because I was, you know, if you're already coming at me like this, I already know what I'm gonna engage with in the future, right? So it's a lot of emotions. I always had to kind of prepare myself when I was meeting with prospective tenants or even current tenants who feel like, you know, you're not my landlord, right? You don't own, like people have looked up the title on me, confirm that I'm the actual landlord. Just a whole bunch of different things. And it's their fear and their insecurity, right? That they try to put upon me to say, well, you cannot be the landlord. Sometimes I had to play the role and bring in my mother or somebody else to kind of just, you know, ease the conversation. But for the most part, it is an emotional thing because you want to be able to be of service to somebody, but you don't necessarily, you know, want someone to kind of to take advantage of you either. So it's been an emotional roller coaster for me. Even to this day, some people are like, you're the landlord. They usually expect the man, right? And an older than me for some reason. I'm like,
well, you look 12, older. So let's clear that up. Right? So, yes. and I mean that in a complimentary way. So
thank you.
Unfortunately, there are bias that we have to all get over with respect to that. So, wow. Dr. Jackie, I know you had just a little bit of different experience because, again, it was your dad that got the tenant, and your tenant stayed with you for a long time, right?
Well, I've had some experience. The first tenant was amazing, loved him, didn't even think he lived there. To the point, it was so sad to see him go. He was great. What I didn't know was that he couldn't pay the rent. And at that point, my husband's not a handyman. So when he said he had to leave, and then later I found out the reason why, I said, wow, we could have done something here. We really could have, right? That was the first thing. My second tenant, I gotta tell you, I went through a lot. My bleeding heart. I have a bleeding heart. It's so horrible. I always want to do good. So not saying that people that have Section 8 is bad, right? However, it's not the person sometimes, but I got double whammy. I got the person, right, that was bad, plus the system that was bad. So they didn't pay because of some paper that was missing for recertification that they had. They just didn't, whatever the case was. 9 months, I didn't get paid for rent. So I had to come out of pocket, right? So being prepared for that, right? Being prepared for that. When she left, oh my God, I got to tell you, it was, we got into a very combative situation, and I had to adhere solely to the rights of the tenant, where at that time my rights meant nothing. Pretty much, she had the upper hand, right? And when she moved out, and I tell you, it's disgusting. I took the stove and I threw it out. I told my husband, take that stove and just throw it out. I don't want it in my house. Just take it out. That was one. Number two, what is that called? The scraper things? You know, when you spackle on the wall? You know what I'm talking about, that.
The metal thing?
Yeah. The grease on top of those cabinets was so thick that I had to scrape it off. And the grease in the kitchen was so bad that when I bought, and I love this, it's called Mr. Green or something like that. That is the degreaser. It was so bad that it was taking the paint off the wall, because that's how long I had to soak it, because that's how bad the grease was. I was done. I was like, I'll never get another tenant again. And never. Okay, so what happens? Here comes my son. Right? He's responsible. Oh, I'm so proud of my son. He was responsible. And so this is funny. Responsible young man, pays the rent on time. One day he's in the kitchen and he sees this bubble, this little water bubble right from under the cabinet, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And it bursts. And the first thing he says is, my mother's going to kill me, right? Not his fault. It's a busted pipe somewhere, right? Something we didn't think about. Mine is a new house.
Right.
His first thing is, Ma. I'm like, what? I already knew. I said, what happened? He goes, Ma, don't kill me. I said, I know what it is. Right? I know what it is. Best time, some people say don't include family, right? It's my son. He went down. I knew what I was prepared to. Then I decided, you know what? I'm not renting it. I just left it alone. I just left it. For some reason, I was like, oh, he left. He may come back. Mother. Bleed out again. Tenant in 3 houses down, approaches my husband about the apartment. Single mom with a baby. And he goes, you know her? I'm like, I don't know anybody. I don't look to the left, not to the right. I don't need to know neighbors. I know my neighbor next door. That's all I need to know. I say hi because I'm courteous, but I'm not that type of person. So he goes, no, you've seen her. I said, no, I haven't. Okay, fine. Long story short, she comes in. She has a baby. She's been my tenant for 7 years now.
Okay.
Emotions. The little child loves us. Right. We love her. Christmas come. We exchange gifts, right? To the point that she's so responsible. She'll call me and say, Jackie, I got the rent. Days will pass. Because I know she's responsible. And one day she called me, she said, if you don't come get this rent, girl, I am going to spend it. I said, I'm coming. And I'm just upstairs.
Wow.
I'm coming down. So I've been blessed and cursed in some instances. My property in Florida, I have a property manager who takes care of it. I don't deal with them. A couple of years ago, I said, honey, we need to go check the house out because it could be a crystal meth lab and we wouldn't know about it. I'm serious. We wouldn't know because all I see is the money in the bank. Cha-ching.
Right.
That's all. Right. That's all I see. I pay them what they need to be paid. I see my money every month. I'm like, fine. We go over there.
The property manager upkeeps the property.
Everything. They have a deposit that if something happens in the house and they send me an email. She already knows me. Sometimes there's days and she's like, okay, she knows she has administrative power over certain amount to purchase if I don't need to give her anything. But that's the trust.
I was gonna say that's definitely ideal. Property manager.
Love her.
We're gonna get into that because I do think that is vitally important. And I had with my ex property in the mountains of North Carolina. We just let a property manager deal with it. Because
I don't have to do anything. Yeah. And the beauty of it is that we have a homeowners association. And oh my God, this homeowners association is like the commercial. Have you seen the commercial where she's like cutting the bushes?
Yes.
You have an oil spill. It's about a quarter size. You got to clean it. I'm like, right? So I just say, listen, I got this notification. She goes, she takes care of it, and that's it, right?
I love it.
No, she saves me a lot. I love her.
Good. Karen, you said you had a story.
Yeah, there's several. I'm sitting here thinking of which is the best one to tell, but the first rental that we had, my advice is not to be emotionally attached to the house, and that was a mistake. The couple pulled at my purse, at my heartstrings because they were in a bit of a financial problem themselves. They had to leave their house. They declared bankruptcy. And because of the credit, right, they couldn't get rental. And so we found out that they were, we attended the same church, and they asked me to allow them to stay in the house. The wife had a sister whose name was Karen who passed away. So I'm like, give me a chance. Let us. So I allowed them to. It was a husband and wife, a grown daughter, and the daughter had a son that was in high school. So potentially 4 chances for income in the house, right?
Wow.
Why are you bouncing checks? Why am I paying the rent a lot because you're not paying it? They gave me, he's like, we're going to pay up front, the whole year up front, if you allow us to, move in and kind of forego the credit check. So I did that, but that quickly changed into wait, and I'll let you know every month when you can deposit the check. So he gave me the checks ahead of time. And I had a property manager. So the house was in a community, and there was a property manager. I had already set up for him to manage the property for me, even though I was moving out. The tenant convinced me, you don't need to, have a middleman in there, and just, the whole everything, just whole heart, Jackie, bleeding heart, like you. And they rented it for 2 years, and they ended up actually burning me to the point where I'm actually with the check at the bank, and the teller, of course, she can't tell me what's in there, but she's looking at it, and she said to me, I can't cash this check for you.
Wow.
And if I were you, I would never accept a check from this person again.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay. So that was, that first house, and I was happy to sell it because when they finally moved out and I went to see it, I didn't recognize my house.
Wow.
I mean, it was to the point I even left them some of my furniture. I was going to throw out the bedroom set. Oh, no, we'll keep it. I mean, not that it was anything wrong with it, but I'm moving to a new state. I want all new,
Right.
So I left them part of my furniture, and it, it was almost like family, but I found out it wasn't. So that taught me the next time that I need a property manager. My brother and I managed our next house, but we acted like we didn't own it. We would show up to do stuff and say, hey, well, we'll talk to, we don't own the house, but the people we work with, and we made it official. We have an LLC, we have a name for the company, we had T-shirts with the name on it and the whole, I lie to you not. We had T-shirts with the company's name, the LLC. That's who owns the house, and we're doing work. You know how those landlords are. You know how they are. We put ourselves in the same shoes with them because the other way around just wasn't a good experience. And then after that, we actually paid a property manager because I couldn't travel. The house was in Greensboro, which is about an hour and a half. I didn't want to be the one traveling. We didn't want to, especially after my dad passed away. He was our painter, our handyman. And after that, it's like, you know what? We're going to pay someone to do this, stay out of it. And like you, Dr. Jackie, just deposit the check, make sure the house is taken care of. They had a certain limit. Anything under that limit, they were approved to fix it, get it done. And if it was over that, then they'd have to call us. And those tenants were, I had one tenant that opened up a business in the house, a daycare center. Wait a minute, you're keeping other people's kids in my house? And I found out because the check was the name of her daycare center. And I went online and looked it up. It was an actual register. And I'm thinking, how does the state of North Carolina give a license for a daycare center in a home that's rented that they don't own, and you don't contact the owner? So that was a headache and a liability.
I'm sure.
The other tenant that had pit bulls that they were raising in the, had a backyard, and they put a dog house, and I had the neighbor next door taking pictures. It was like still pictures of the dog climbing over the fence, jumping out, running throughout the neighborhood. So the other tenant let me know. Again, a big liability for me. If this dog bites somebody, they're going for the deep pockets. They're not going to the tenant. They're going to the owner.
Right.
Found out that animal control had been called several times to go to the house. No one thought to look up the owner to let the owner know that this is happening. But again, this was under the watch of the property manager.
Wow.
So of course, the property manager had property manager.
Go ahead, Dr. Jackie. What did you want to say?
I was gonna say, my thing was, I'm not, I don't have words for you, Karen. I'm like, oh my God, like, blah, right? Like,
yes.
There's horror stories, there's also good stories. What I wanted to say is, with my property manager, I learned boundaries. Like, I wasn't going to, like, when we went to visit, they gave us numbers. They were like, stay in touch. We were like, yeah, no, the property manager's taking care of it. I knew not to blur the line. because I know the dynamic of three, and usually two people side, and then one day they're fine, and then the other person. So I understood the boundaries were of the essence. With that, what I want to say is that we hire these people; they don't hire us. Like even when we purchase a home, I was just having a conversation with someone. She's like, they want me to sign papers for the mortgage. I'm like, no, they work for you. You don't work for them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, understanding that, in the future, unfortunately, you learn from experience, but for our listeners, when you're going to hire a property manager, you get to really do your homework and do your diligent search. Find out what they're about. Find out what their record is like. Find out when I got mine, I was like, "What's your occupancy rate?"
Yeah.
Like I want to hear that you're going to have my property open for months at a time.
Right.
Like I need to know that. She was good. She found the tenant 2 weeks in, 2 weeks after, right? And it's the first tenants of the house when I purchased. But we need to interview people because I'm bleeding heart.
Yeah.
I'm a first-time home buyer because we don't make the switch, right? Or
Right.
so we don't make the switch, the mentality that, it's investment, now we're owning something. We tend to over-identify with our tenants.
Right.
We get burned. We do. We're gonna get burned.
Because the heartstrings
The heart
come into
gets
play.
involved.
The heart, but you know what I was gonna say? That usually happens when you also live in the property, right? So you're seeking property management sometimes when you're away from the property, but there's owners who live in the property. And when you live in the property, and I remember just because I decided I was never gonna live in a property with tenants anymore. I grew up with them. So I moved into a single family home. But when you live in the property, they're watching you. And so even if you had a property manager, it's also like they're still watching. Like, oh, she's the owner. She's having parties. I always tell, no one's sitting in the front of the house. No one's in the back of the house.
Right.
But they're watching you. And so it was always very uncomfortable for me because it was just kind of like, oh, you play loud music? I'm playing loud music. Like, it's just like, it was always something. And I'm just like, it's my house. When you leave, I'm still here. Like, it's still my property. But what I was going to say about property managers, like you said, Dr. Jackie, and about interviewing people, if you can, you still have to create a presence, right? Because it's your property. The property manager may think it's theirs, or they may want to help you in that. But at the end of the day, you got to do a surprise visit too. Or if you have a neighbor or someone in the area, or if you have cameras in the property or whatever, you want to do your own kind of like check-in, just, because like Karen said, that sometimes things are happening and you're not aware of it. And you're thinking, oh, paperwork looks good. They showed me some pictures here. Income is coming in. Ooh, everything is great. But at the end of the day, you go back and you're like, what in the world? Like, and they may be lenient on some things that you may not be lenient on.
Right.
You have to let them know.
Right, because guess whose property it is? It's yours.
Right.
And you're responsible. Yeah.
I'm responsible at the end of the day.
My first profession, my real profession, taught me that there's fraud in property management as well.
Everywhere.
So you could, be on top of how they rent. I mean, are they renting to their friends, or are you making sure that there's, segregation of duties and just all types of stuff? So you have to be on top of it.
Yeah. And I wanted to share, all of that also comes with relationship building. It's important. We have to build a relationship. My property manager already knows me to the point she's like, I'm not going to bother her with this, because she already had a couple of conversations with me. Like, she knows what I'll tolerate. She knows what I won't. And she is, I got to tell you, she knows not to bother me. Right. To the point that when this whole coronavirus happened, my tenants don't have luxury jobs. My tenants have minimum wage in Florida.
Got you.
Okay, I'm clear. I know what they do.
Right.
Their rent has never been late, ever.
God
And
bless.
so, out of the goodness of my heart, I said, because I'm the type of person that if I receive, right, I get to give.
Right.
Not all mine.
Right.
And when I had the fire in this house, I was blessed. I was blessed with the rent of my house, of the tenant being paid for the whole year. Wow. I didn't have to come out of pocket. I didn't have to do any of that because of the insurance. And I said, you know what? I told my husband, how would you feel if we give them 1 month? He says, do what you want. And I called my property manager and I said, listen, I don't want to charge them this month. She goes, yeah, but the law. I says, no, I want to do this.
Yeah.
This is what I want to do. She was like, no. I said, sweetheart, you'll get your fee. You'll get your fee.
Right.
But I want them, right? Because first of all, they've been my tenants for 10 years. That house, I haven't put a penny other than the down payment.
That's
That's
great.
I haven't. So if they can't, or right, they'll think about it twice before they say I can't pay the rent.
Right.
One. Number two, it's a business. I get that, but they're also humans. And so I've understood, right, that my giving I receive. Right. So there's a thing, right? I'm a business owner. I'm hardcore, but I also know the human part of it. Right. My experience has been that my abundance comes through my giving. Isn't that crazy? My abundance comes from me giving.
But
Can I just
and so
add something to that? Can I just add something to that about the business mindset? Is just like any business, there's customer appreciation, there's service that you give people, right?
Yeah.
And so, irregardless, right? Like for me, Corona, COVID, Christmas, there's like, oh, I'll give you a discount. These are the things that I would do, right? For what I call my clients, right? Because at the end of the day, it's still a service I'm providing them.
Mm-hmm.
It is a business, right? Because at the end of the day, you're putting it on your taxes, right? You're doing different things that require you a business. So it doesn't necessarily mean because, you might that might be part of your business plan. You know what? For holidays, I may give a discount to my clients, right? And I'm gonna put that in my, profit and loss statement, right? Because I'm gonna give that discount. That's already something I do, right? Like I remember I had two clients, I call them clients, that I actually financially counseled them because they were losing their job. And not because of, hey, I would love for them to pay the rent, but they were having challenges. So I had to get past that barrier of what it was that was not getting my rent, right? Like, why weren't you paying? What's going on? What do you need? And at that time I had the capacity and the resource to provide them free financial counseling, free first time, free things resources that can help them. Unfortunately, they felt that they had to go back. They were young. We were about all the same age, so they had to go back to their parents' home. They felt at the time, but I never forget. And this is just a good story. I had a tenant who this is years ago, lost his job at the MTA when MTA had the strike. So this is like years ago. And he said to me, I think I'm gonna have to go. I said, okay, but you still owe me 2 months, right? We gotta go, no problem. So, and I asked him kindly because I did provide him I gave him all types of relief. I was like, you know what, maybe you could do a weekly, a monthly, but let's talk about the finances, let's do some financial counseling, here's this resource. But also some people may take your weakness, they may think your kindness is a weakness. So what I had him do, but he didn't really think about it, was I drafted a letter saying that you're gonna pay me back my 2 months rent, or by August, whatever day we came together, because he was kind of like, okay, she's cool. We walked to the notary. He signed, I signed, made a copy. Here's your note. Give me your forwarding address. Let me know where you're going, just in case mail comes or something like that for you. And then I'll call you on this date, right? Because you're gonna pay me, right? Because now the strike was over, you're getting your life together.
Back to work. Yeah.
They come, I must have called him like a stalker. Hello, anybody? Nope, no answer. Okay, no problem. I got your forwarding address. Guess where we're going? Small claims court.
That's right.
Went to small claims court. He saw me, I saw him, and he was like, man, you're good. He thought he was gonna get away with it. He's like, I showed this to my union attorney, and he was like, this is legal here. You signed off that you were gonna pay her, and you didn't.
Wow.
We were the only two people in that court who sat next to each other laughing, because everybody else was like upset, like, oh, small claims court, you're fighting against the money, whatever. He was like, here's your money.
Come
I,
on.
I saw him years later, and he was like, you were the best tenant. I mean, the best tenant. He was like, you're the best landlord. And he wanted me
Wow.
to help him to buy him a house for the first time. So it is, at the end of the day, to me, it's still a business. And when you do business, right, when you start getting, just like you said with the property manager, you start blurring your line with your tenant, your client, and yourself. That's when people start saying, oh, it's okay. No problem.
Yeah.
I'll pay you next week, or I'll do this, or I'll do that. No, you have to still be firm, but you still be your person, which is a good person trying to help somebody out. But when it's time to come down to the brass tacks, it's like, no, this is still a business.
Absolutely.
So
That's why I had to separate from the first renter that I had. I was emotionally tied to his story, right? And it just didn't work. And I also had a tenant that I had to take to court because she moved out and felt like because I left, I don't need to pay the rent because I'm not there. I have a lease. You signed a lease.
That's right.
You have to pay me. I understand that you're having, some hard times or whatever, and maybe you can't pay me now, but how about we're going to put this judgment on you, and if you ever try to buy something again, you have to pay me because I provided, a service for you.
Right.
Yeah, and sorry, Jerome. I just wanted to say it's important. The lease is important. It's so important because that's a document. I remember I live in my property. I have the tenant. I have a front yard, a backyard, and a side. No access to the front, no access to the back, no access to the side. No washing machine, no dishwasher. Not paying that. It doesn't come with the apartment. You're not putting it in there. I'm not paying water. Come on now, right? Just being able to say that. And then the other thing is, like, my thing is the security deposit. Remember the tenant that I had to scrape the grease from the cabinets? Had the nerve to ask me for a security deposit.
You're lucky she asked and didn't just move out and write out her security deposit.
No, honey, no. She goes, but that's not the thing. I said, do you remember the time that you left and you decided to leave the country and leave your minor in the house, right? Right? It was her birthday. You left her, and she threw paper towels in the toilet, and that black sewage stuff popped up. Oh, you forgot that I had to pay for the plumbing in the middle of the night for that.
Wow.
You want to do that?
Wow.
Done. Yeah, that's good.
So here's my question, right? So I'm considering buying a investment property. Right? And I'm going to ask each of you, what top 3 things should I consider before becoming a landlord? And any one of you can start. What? And no, I'm not looking to do that. I'm just.
I like to start. I would like to start.
As nice as I am, right? There's one thing. So I have this thing, right? My food, my family, and my funds. When you mess with any of those 3 things, that nice guy goes out the window quickly, and I revert back to days where I really was not a nice person. So I don't ever want to put myself into that situation. But if I'm considering becoming a landlord, any one of you could start. What 3 things should I do?
I like to start. So I would say for first, know your city and state landlord tenant laws, right? Because a lot of the times people do, property owners do things emotionally, right? Ad hoc. I've had many landlord friends who's like, I came and got my rent with a bat. Like it's just different, it's like, that's not legal. That could be assault, that could be threatening, all types of things. So know your city and state laws for landlord tenants, and know if you're in a landlord friendly or a tenant friendly state, right? Because that will help you understand how to position yourself, right? When you're going out and looking for property. Secondly, know about communication. Do not be afraid to communicate either directly, because it's a customer service. This is customer service 101. I remember when I was a foreclosure prevention counselor, and I had a guy who was losing his home, but guess what? He was paying the utilities for the two floors, his unit and the renter's unit. So summertime, air conditioner on, the tenant's not even at home. He's at work. Heat is on when the winter time and the windows are open, and he's complaining that he's cold. And I asked the owner, I'm like, so what were you doing? Who's paying for what? He's like, oh, I thought I had to pay for everybody's utilities. Education. Like, know about this before you walk into this room.
Right.
But also, he was afraid to communicate with the tenant. He was and he was mad at the tenant. He's like, oh, all he wants is me to fix his apartment. Next thing, live in these apartments like have these apartments like you would live in them. Don't move it. Don't have an apartment and you wouldn't even live in it. Like, come on. Like, I think that's what you want quality tenants, right? You want people to pay you on time. You want all these different things, but they're living in this apartment that you wouldn't even want to set yourself in.
Right.
So I tell people all the time, quality. And align yourself with a good team. If it's going to be a property manager, then go with that, right? Make sure you have a good landlord-friendly attorney in your pocket, just in case you got to go to eviction court or write some type of document. Make sure you have that, and make sure you document. Right? A lot of the times now, people just talk. Oh, my tenant lives downstairs. They used to get mad at me. I would send them a certified letter, and they'd be like, right on this first floor. Because they're like, why are you sending me a letter? You live upstairs. I'm sending you a letter in the mail, and I'll give it to you. And I need you to sign off on it, that you read it, that you acknowledge and you understand what I'm writing, because I'm keeping this for record. And just a short story, I was sued, right? My first year as a landlord, oh my God, those 20s was real rough. I had a tenant, short story. Family sometimes don't call your cousin or your brother or sister, whoever, to kind of fix things. Right? Get a professional. I had him. Right, my brother's like, don't worry, I got this. I know how to hammer a nail. Like, okay. So next thing you know, my client preferred to have her kids run in the common hallway with no shoes all the way down to the sidewalk. Stepped on the nail, called the ambulance. She got to the hospital. Health insurance was expired. Called her family. Like, what should I do? They were like, sue your landlord. Call this attorney. Blase. I was like, I wasn't even living there. They served me in my house hack because I had another house where I was living in the basement. I'm like, how did they find me? So they found me.
Wow.
But I documented everything. I spoke to her because I had a good relationship, right? Business relationship with her. I spoke to her, like, what happened? She told me all the backstory, just divulged, what to do. And when I went to the deposition, two things happened. One is, just like you guys said about apartment looking like a hot mess, I went into her apartment because she was actually on the verge of moving out. And then she just abandoned the apartment. This is why you need to know the laws. You're not supposed to go into the apartment unless you have a marshal. But of course, I didn't know that at the time. I went into the apartment, took pictures of everything, documented all the things that were in there, moved those things, supposed to put it in storage. I put it in my basement, don't tell nobody. And so, hot mess. I was very upset, but I moved on. And then I saw her on the way to the deposition, and she was like, I was like, you never came and got your stuff. She's like, oh, my neighbor, the neighbor said that you threw it out. I was like, no, your stuff is still there. I wrote a real quick letter. I give authorization to Melba Martinez to throw away my belongings. She signed, she dated it. We went into the deposition. I had what I call, and one day I'm going to be selling that, is my landlord journal. I wrote down all the things that we spoke about, the date, the time, and everything. And when I was interviewed, like, so tell us what happened. I said, okay, let me just let you know. I opened up the book and I was like, on January, they were like,
I love it.
They were like, okay, you're good. So all I say is, know your laws, because you don't want to be the person at the court and you're thinking you're getting something and you're not. Make sure that you communicate and document your communication, right? Make sure that if it's going to be recording, a text, whatever, and put it in writing, right? Don't be afraid to like, oh, they're not gonna. No, I tell people from the door, I will write you all the time. Why? Because I want a paper trail. Don't we do that at work? Don't we do this in our business? We do paper trails, right? And just, make sure that you have open communication with folks.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll go next because I have to jump off in a few minutes.
Yes, please, Dr.
What
Jackie.
I'll say is if you're purchasing out of state, know the state law when you purchase property. What I didn't know when I purchased my home in Florida is that I didn't have an attorney. I didn't have to get one. And so it was when I decided to do it on my own. The other thing is know that an investment property requires a different type of loan. It's not a regular first home buyer's loan. It's a conventional loan. Oftentimes the rates are higher. So know that. The other thing is if you're gonna allow a property manager to take care of your home, interview at least 3. Don't do the first one. Put a bidding. Name your price. Some of them are up to now 15%. I'm at 10 and I'm staying at 10. I'm a long-term client. I'm staying that. Right. So name your terms. They're the ones that need the work. Right. We need them. But they also need the work. Remember, you have your buyer's hat on. Another thing that I would say is, listen, know that they're going to mess up your house. Carolyn said, don't get emotionally attached. They're going to mess up your house.
Right.
Right? They're not going to give you your house the same way you left it. There's going to be something, right? Like right now, I'm in my home is new. I looked at my cabinets. I'm like, oh, dag, there's a chip already on the counter. It's going to happen. It's wear and tear, right? Not because they're nasty people, but because there's wear and tear, right? Another thing is if you're the type of person that wants to keep your property updated and upgraded, because you never know, there's going to be an expense. So know that. The other thing is know the market rate of the property if you're going to rent it out. A lot of landlords go by, oh, I think this is what I should charge. Look, you can increase X percentage. Okay, legally you can increase X percentage. Yes, people are hurting, but yes, who's paying now for a lot of things? My father has a 3 property home. Out of nowhere, now he has to pay $10 for bed bugs. This is a new thing now, right? Everybody that has, right? Another thing is you have a 3 family property, you have to get a licensed plumber to give you a certification to say the certain part of your home is okay. Listen, people, not for nothing, but we've been giving stimulus checks. They're going to come after who? Unfortunately, is the middle class homeowners who will pay for all of these things. I'm waiting for my water bill. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I shared how they called and they said, listen, we need to fix your water meter. It wasn't working. I'm like, oh, dag, I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Honey, they're not going to send me a letter saying, I'm saving you $200. No, they're going to say, listen, you're going to have to pay $200 in the next 3 months. I'm clear. Right. Know this. Know these things. Like, be prepared. Like, I'm waiting. I'll share. I'll tell you. I'll share. As soon as I get the letter, I'm going to send it to you, Jerome, so you can share.
All right. I'm looking forward to that.
No, I'm not. I don't want it, but I'm clear. I'm clear that I'm clear. The money has to come from somewhere. And his history tells us that homeowners get the biggest hit. We do. There was a time we didn't pay for water. Now all of a sudden we pay for water.
Now we do. Yes, I remember.
Right.
Wow.
So know that, right? Another thing I want to say, look, when we started this conversation, we all started with someone told us. We all started with someone encouraged us.
Yes.
Right? Don't do this in a silo. You're not alone. There's always someone out there to help you. Jerome, I want to thank you because you put these forums together. We're here. This is what I always tell people, I don't charge to talk.
I already know.
Right? Like
all I do is text Dr. Jackie and then we have the phone call and it's on and popping. Yes.
Yeah, and we talk. Another thing is feel free to, there's no experience that cannot teach you. Whether you want to be taught the right way or the bad way, you're always going to learn something.
Yes.
The other thing is, don't get discouraged over the conversations that we had. I got to tell you, I was thinking I want to purchase another home. The conversation is like, do I really want to? Yes, I want to. Because it outweighs, the good outweighs the bad. So don't be discouraged based on the conversation that we had. Because I'm going to tell you, investment property is the best thing I could have done. Renting my home, the rental unit was the best thing I could have done.
Awesome. And I know you have to go. We
Yeah,
love you. I
love
look
you
forward
all.
to talking to you.
All
Have
right,
a
my
wonderful
love.
day. Thank you.
Bye.
Me, I love you, partners.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye-bye.
Good one.
Karen, you're up. So help share with us
So
three
mine will be
things that
short and sweet. Yeah, that you need to know. One, make sure that you can pay the mortgage for that rental property along with all your other things, right? I don't want to put myself in a bind. The first time I did it, like I said, I was thrown into it. It wasn't something that I decided I wanted to do. I hadn't done a whole lot of research. It was circumstance. And again, because it was the house that I lived in that I, had built for me, my mortgage was pretty hefty. And so when I moved here to North Carolina, my rent was what my mortgage was basically.
right.
So I didn't want to change my lifestyle, right? But there were days or months, several months, that they did not pay the mortgage, and I'm stuck with my mortgage and my rent that are equal. Well, I paid my mortgage first because I'm like, I'd rather keep my credit good and
Right.
the apartment, whatever. So that would be my advice. If you're going to go out and you're going to get investment property, don't make it so tight that you cannot afford to pay both if you have to. Hopefully you won't have to, but make it so that you possibly can. I'm going to disagree. For personally, this is my personal thing. I don't want to have a relationship with my tenants. So I will always, the next time I do it, I will always have a property manager in place, because my experience has taught me that when I have a relationship with the tenant, they feel like they can get away with something. You pay everything else that you need to pay. Because you feel like you have a relationship with me, you feel like it's okay, I'll pay you later, I'll do that. No, I was taught that you pay your rent first and foremost.
Mhm.
You have to have a place, to stay. And that's how I do it. You can sit in your house and you can, as my mom say, you can have rice and beans for dinner. Nobody knows what's in your belly. But when
Right.
you're on the street, right, you regret it.
Exactly.
So I never want to have that personal relationship with my tenant again. I want it to be business. Now, I have done personal things for my tenant, but through the property manager, right? So I've called up my property manager. The tenant reported an issue, and it was a water issue that had to be fixed. And I knew that they were inconvenienced because they had to jack up and drill through the concrete outside the house.
Wow.
So I knew that they were inconvenienced by the fix to the problem. So I told the property manager to give them a cut on their rent going up. Of course, I think the property manager probably told them the owner said blah, 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 but they didn't know me and I had never met them. I met them on paper. But what I'm saying is it doesn't preclude you from doing the personal things for your tenants,
Right.
but I do want that barrier. I don't want them to know who I am. I don't want them to know that I own a house and I live someplace else. Oh, well, she can afford us not paying, that
Right.
type of thing.
Right.
I want that separation. And the third thing that I would say, and Amelba, we totally are in sync here. Don't rent a place that you wouldn't live in yourself if you had to.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that you will live in it, right? But if the situation presented itself and you had to live in that space that you're renting out, would you? And to me, if the answer is no, you wouldn't, then it's not fit for you to rent out. Now, I'm
Amen.
not
I love it.
saying, the same luxury because you live where you can afford, right? But if the tables were equal and I was the one that was going out to look and I needed to live in that space, if that's what my dollars could afford, would that be a place that I'd live in? And if you wouldn't do it, I wouldn't rent it. I
love
wouldn't
it.
offer it to rent.
Can I just
Something
share
that-
Can I just share one last thing?
Uh-huh.
If I was speaking to you directly and you said, well, I'm looking to purchase an investment property for a rental, what I would say is something that Karen just said about the relationship is know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Know who you
know
are.
what you can, right? Know who you are. Know who you can, what you can tolerate and what you can't. Some people can, and I respect what Karen said. Some people can have, you need a person in between, right? And some people can be that person, right? But you have to know who you are, because if you don't know who you are when you're going into a business, right, then that's where things start to falter, right? Because you're just like, oh, you know, I'm going to do this, you know, you're going to feel bad. All these different things that may come into the cloud your judgment, your business decision.
Right.
So I really respect, like, you have to know who you are, and you have to know if you can do this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, and so property management is a cost. Maybe in the beginning you can't afford the 10% to give to your property manager, but if that's a goal, say that's my goal. I'm gonna, you know, 2 years, 3, whatever, I'm gonna have a property manager because I can't do this anymore. But know who you are and know what you can manage, because that's what happens. A lot of times people don't know they can manage it, and they'll just do whatever. And that's when we come into these slumlords, we come into these issues, repairs don't take place. All these things happen because they didn't know they can't communicate with other people. Then they didn't realize this is another kind of, like, for some people, second job, all those different things. And then they run away from the situation. So definitely know who you are.
Yeah.
And
I
you
want
know,
to clarify.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify when I said that I'm going to disagree. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that what Imelba said was wrong. It is definitely because I know that I'm the sentimental person, and
so you're
I'm
talking about just for you, which I
correct.
Totally got.
I think I made that clear, but I just wanted to make sure that it was clear, because you know, we're not here disagreeing or, you know, or anything like that. But I know
definitely not. But you definitely picked up on something.
And it's probably based on the first experience that I had. I was emotionally attached to the property, and so it didn't come out well for me.
Got you. And we're running a little bit over, but there was one question that I had gotten inbox of Melba, and I'm sorry that I didn't ask it, so please excuse me for this. But the question was basically, a person is considering purchasing a property and they want to do Airbnb. What are your recommendations behind having an investment property that you will Airbnb? Now, I do know the laws in New York are pretty different in that, but because it was the hospitality industry that basically shut that down in New York. So that I do know. But what are your recommendations about using an investment property as an Airbnb?
I mean, I actually think it's a great idea, but I definitely, you know, recommend to people get educated on it, know the laws, because you can get, you know, you can get stuck on that. And then also with that, you also need to get like a manager, right? Because that's even more taxing.
Right, because it has to be cleaned every time.
It has to be clean, right? So you definitely, you know, if this is like, you know what, I'm ready for this, to hire someone to help in doing this, having a furnished apartment, you're pretty much a hotel, right? And is it lucrative? Yes. But at the end of the day, you need to know the laws. You need to make sure you have a good team, right? And it can run. I've had many friends. I haven't tried it yet, but I have a lot of friends who have done it, and they've actually, not in New York. I actually have a couple of friends. Sora, Joy Williams, so not put her name out there, but she's actually she does Airbnb. There's an association out that actually helps this, like, advocate for owners out here in New York who may want to do Airbnb. So my first, educate yourself, know your tolerance, right? You get that team in place, but it can be something that can be lucrative at the end.
Absolutely.
I think even more lucrative than having your rental.
Yeah, because you're getting your money. It's not coming through you, it's through someplace else, but you're getting your money and they're not living there, they're staying there, and then they're out. So I you know, and my wife and I, when we've traveled, we've done Airbnb, and I walk away saying, for the amount of money we paid for this stay, I know for a fact this is their mortgage, right? And as soon as we leave on Sunday, someone is coming in right behind us. So in terms of it being lucrative, that I know for a fact it is, but I don't know the behind the scenes stuff. I know you have to hire somebody. Someone's always in there cleaning. Liability is probably higher because you have so many different people coming in and recycling in and out of your home. So thank you for that. So we're gonna wrap up, but do know we are continuing this series because real estate is so vitally important to us with respect to financial literacy as well as for wealth building. And one of the things we desire to do in this group, also in each of our professions, is build wealth not only for ourselves but for others. So we will be back again. We just have to decide on what date we'll be back again. But I'll let you, each of you, just close really quickly with a last word about this particular topic. And Karen, I'll start with you.
Okay. I just want to say that, you know, we shared some horror stories, and I don't think we highlighted a lot on the good, you know, the good stories. I know my property in New Jersey, I really wish that I had kept it if I had the forethought. So if this is something that you're looking to do, you know, don't be afraid. Definitely take the chance. There are some really good landlords out there, and I want to say that there are definitely some really good tenants out there.
Awesome.
I've had a few good tenants. So this is a business like any other business. There's some ups and there's some downs. There's some ebbs and there's some flows. If it's for you, then fine. But you know, if it's not for you, don't take the plunge in it, because this is not something that you can, you know, half step. You have to really, you know, you get out of it what you put into it.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. Melba, any last words?
Well, like I said, like my shirt says, right, the landlord mindset. Like you gotta make sure, like you echoing what Karen said about your mindset, right? If it's not for you, it's not for you, and that's okay, right? It's okay. It's not for everybody, but definitely. But I would just say, educate yourself, know the laws in your state and city. You know, talk to other people who've been in the situation. And yes, we've kind of highlighted some of the not so great things, but we've had some, you know, in my experience, it's been about 20 years. I've had my ebbs and flows, and there's people I wish I kept. I've never, you know, for a longer time. And then there were some people I was like, oh, I'm glad, you know, to see you go. But but at the end of the day, it, you know, once you have that mindset, you can do anything, right? And just stay within the community. And I think this is an important conversation to have, because a lot of the times we, like my mom, I don't think she, you know, at first she might not have realized like, oh, I really got a, you know, single mother. She's a nurse full time. Then she comes home and there's repairs that need to be done and stuff. Like, this is kind of like really need that support in this. So I just tell people, just educate yourself. And then there's a lot of networking. I'm gonna, you know, reach out to me. I do a landlord consultation for the first time buyers, because once you get, a lot of people get training for first time buying. I mean, for first time landlords, I'm sorry. But a lot of people, when you get into your property, they don't know what to do first. They're like, what do I do now? I'm a landlord.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I feel like, and both of you can check me on this if I'm wrong, I feel like we've only scratched the surface on this particular topic. There's so much more that we could certainly dig into, and I have to do a part 2 on this particular topic because it's so valuable and it's such a wide range. You know, we talk about the Airbnb, we talk about the horror stories, but there are some great stories as well with being landlords and having amazing tenants who take care of your property. And also, because one of the things when I was thinking about, you know, being a landlord, I was like, what incentives can I provide to my tenant that are going to help them, hopefully as best they can, upkeep my property? Those are things I think that we certainly need to get into talking about more. And I think that we'll do a part 2 on this, and we'll talk about and scratch and go deeper into some of that. So I thank my amazing panelists. I love you guys.
Thank you. This
I
has been
can't wait
for
for us
this.
to do the next thing. Melba, whatever you have going on out there in the real estate world, please let us know. And if you have anything you want to share really quick, please do.
Okay, I will. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening. I'm happy to
You
be
as well.
back in the US. Not really, because I prefer to be on the beach, but I'm happy to be back with my Buy Black for Life family. So,
You're
one and all,
wonderful.
thank you. Have a wonderful evening. And for the
You
love
too.
of our people, Buy Black for Life.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.